These mountains held a secret that Rome would never forget. Trajan's finest legions marched into the Carpathian gorge, confident, disciplined, and completely unaware. The centurions had marched 100 battles, but none like this one. Above them, hidden in the tree line, Dacian warriors watched in total silence. 50,000 Roman soldiers, the finest fighting force in the ancient world, had walked into a perfect trap. Then came the first javelin. The sky turned black with Dacian spears. In seconds, the legendary Roman discipline simply shattered. These were not cowards. They were men who had never experienced anything like this. The Dacians flooded down the cliffs like a mountain storm. Roman officers screamed orders, but no one could hear above the chaos. What had been a disciplined army became a screaming mob in minutes. The eagle standards, Rome's most sacred symbols, were nearly lost. Even Emperor Trajan could not believe what he was seeing. To survive, they dropped everything Rome had brought into those mountains. The mountain gorge became a graveyard of Roman pride. Through the night, what remained of the legions ran and ran. Their camp, built with Roman engineering precision, was now ash. No man was left behind, but the cost of that loyalty was unimaginable. When dawn came, the survivors counted their numbers and wept. With no medical supplies, the soldiers tore apart their own uniforms to bandage the dying. Roman doctors worked through the night with nothing but cloth and courage. The Roman army medics, among the best in the ancient world, were overwhelmed. Some soldiers simply stopped speaking. Their minds had gone somewhere far away. Even Trajan sat in silence that night, the weight of thousands of dead pressing on him. The burial rites were brief. There was no time, and far too many dead. The command structure of Rome's finest legion had simply ceased to function. Soldiers who could barely hold a chisel carved the names of their dead brothers into stone. The Dacians had vanished back into their mountains, like ghosts made of stone and fury. Rome's greatest army looked like a wounded snake retreating from the mountains. These were not men who had lost a battle. They had lost something inside themselves. Word spread faster than the retreating army. Rome had been humiliated in the mountains. The wagons carrying the wounded were the most painful sight of all. One soldier had run through the entire ambush clutching Rome's golden eagle standard and refused to drop it. When they crossed the Danube, they knew the campaign was over. Even the horses of Rome were broken by what happened in those mountains. The generals sat through the night, trying to understand how they had failed so completely. Around the campfires, the stories came out, but no one had words for what they had seen. The Dacian falx, a blade designed to hook under Roman shields, had proven devastating. Even the act of building camp, so automatic to a Roman soldier, felt like an enormous effort. Decebalus, the Dacian king, watched them go, already planning what came next. Trajan sent letters back to Rome, carefully worded to say as little as possible about the disaster. Back in Rome, the Senate received the news in stunned silence. Across the empire, thousands of Roman families waited for news that would never come. The empty spaces in the camp told the full story of what the mountains had taken. The survivors would spend the rest of their lives trying to explain what happened at Tapae. But Trajan was not broken. He was learning. He would come back. The mountains returned to silence, but they had changed history forever. They left their blood on those mountains and would not forget it. The survivors had something the dead did not: each other. Rome pulled back to its fortified frontier, battered but unbroken as a civilization. Rome did what Rome always did after defeat. It adapted. Trajan began planning the Second Dacian War. This time, he would make no mistakes. History would eventually be rewritten in stone, on the column that still stands in Rome today. Every scene of those brutal wars was carved on Trajan's column, including the retreats. But Dacia was not defeated. It was ready, and it was waiting. Decebalus had proved something terrifying. Rome could bleed. The mountains of Dacia were not just a battlefield. They were a weapon. Rome had stumbled, but it had not fallen. Every empire reaches a moment that defines it. This was Rome's. Trajan would go on to be called Rome's greatest emperor, but he earned that title through humiliation first. Most Romans in the city would never know how close their empire came to disaster. Roman historians wrote carefully about Tapae. Too much detail might shake public confidence. 4 years later, Rome came back. stronger, smarter, and burning for revenge. This time, Trajan left nothing to chance. Sarmizegetusa fell, and with it, Dacia. Decebalus refused to be taken prisoner. He chose death on his own terms. Dacia became Roman, but the mountains never forgot what they had done to Rome. That column still stands in Rome today, silently telling the story of blood and stone. 2,000 years later, those carved soldiers still carry their wounded brothers. These mountains still stand exactly as they did when Rome bled here. Archaeologists still find Roman equipment in those mountains, the remnants of the disaster. Every empire, no matter how powerful, carries within it the seeds of its own vulnerability. Rome would go on for 3 more centuries, but it never forgot what mountains could do. This was not just one battle. It was the moment Rome learned it was not invincible. The men who survived Tapae carried something no training could teach, the knowledge of true survival. Most of those who died here have no gravestone, no name, no record. Today the mountain pass is peaceful, but the ground beneath your feet is soaked in Roman blood. Trajan rode forward, because that is what great men do after their greatest mistakes. So tell me, was Trajan's ambition that led 50,000 men into those mountains his greatest quality, or his deadliest flaw?